Hello and welcome to today's video. I thought I would start kind of like a new series doing specific yarn reviews, mainly for sock yarns. So I do have some yarn reviews on my YouTube channel. It's mainly magazine designs, things I've designed for magazines, and then as I talk about the design, I've also talked about the yarn, or things I've self-published where I've talked about the yarn. I rarely talk really about the sock yarn that I use, and I do knit a lot of socks. If you've been watching my YouTube channel, on my podcast especially, you will know that I usually have a pair of socks on the needles, and I use anything from really budget friendly yarns to quite expensive hand-dyed, more luxurious yarns. So I thought I would start doing a little bit of a review series. This will be obviously long term. As I finish a pair of socks and wear them for a bit and things like that, I will share my views on a particular yarn. Some yarns I've knitted with loads of times, some I haven't. If you're new here, my name is Anniken. I design knitting patterns, I teach knitting workshops online and in person, and I sell yarn through our website YarnAddict.co.uk. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. So today I'm going to talk about a yarn that I think I bought for the first time this year. I don't remember having knitted with this yarn before. Earlier in the year, in March I think it was, I was in Norway visiting my parents, and I went into a yarn shop, and it's quite a big yarn shop, and I couldn't really, I mean, there was loads of yarn there I would have bought, but I had limited space, so I only picked up a ball of sock yarn. And the reason I picked it up is because it was this colour. The yarn I don't think I've knitted with before. I've knitted with other yarns from this brand before, but not this specific sock yarn. And then more recently I picked up another ball in this country. It doesn't really matter where I bought these yarns from because they're stocked in loads of different yarn shops, and I don't really want to pick on specific shop owners, but I thought I would just give you my views on this yarn. So you may remember these. I knitted these, I finished them in July maybe, I can't remember. And while I was knitting these, I also cast them for another pair of socks in this colorway, which I bought in this country. And I finished these first because these are just plain socks. I finished these first while I was still working on these, and I'd worn these a few times before I finished these. So once I finished these socks, I haven't worn them. I just put them away in my bedroom, and I thought I will film a review before I wear them, because I have some that I've worn and washed and some I haven't worn and haven't washed yet, and then I can compare them. So first, let me tell you about this pattern. This is my Roseland pattern. It is toe up. I was trying to see, remember this available toe up and top down, but I think it's just toe up with a gusset and heel flap. It has a rib on the back of the heel which then floats into the lace pattern. The lace pattern will look a little bit more open when it's stretched on your foot and your leg. This sock blocker is slightly smaller than my foot and my calf. And then I've got this sock. So I have one that have been defluffed slightly and one that hasn't. This yarn I bought because I was away and I needed something for cinema knitting, and I hadn't brought any knitting suitable for cinema knitting because I didn't know we were going to go to the cinema. So I happened to be going near a yarn shop that I hadn't been to before. I walked in, I saw these yarns on the back wall, and I thought, I just love those colors. So I picked up this color, and it was purely because I picked up that color and I just loved the color, and I saw this color and I thought that's really gorgeous. It looks a little bit lighter and brighter on the screen than it does in real life. I think it's a bit more darker purple in real life than it looks on screen. So first, let me tell you what this yarn is. So this is Rico Design sock yarn. I think it's just called Rico Design sock yarn. It has 75% wool and 25% polyamide. And my understanding is that polyamide and nylon is basically the same thing, which is a fairly standard composition. Is that what it's called? For a sock yarn. It has about 400 meters per 100 grams. It's fairly standard sock yarn. A lot of sock yarns have that blend of fibers. So I mainly wear socks in bed at night because I get really cold feet. So I wear socks every night in bed all year round, even when I go to hot countries like Spain. We were in Spain in June. It was high 20s even at night, and I still wore socks in bed because my feet get really cold, and then I wake up with cramp in my feet, and that's not very nice. I wear socks in Spain even. Don't wear them like all day. I just wear them overnight and first thing in the morning till I've showered and gotten dressed. I rarely wear them inside like boots and shoes and things, mainly because I have big feet and I struggle to get shoes that fit anyway. So adding extra thickness is not something I necessarily want to do. And I noticed when I was wearing these, and I do, because I only wear them overnight and for a short time in the morning, I do wear them more than one night. I do not put them in the wash every morning. So I will usually wear them like between 2 and 3 to like 5 nights. Now you might think that sounds disgusting, but wool is supposed to be like self-cleaning, and you're not supposed to wash wool after every single wear. So I do wear them several days. The lighter, more paler socks I have get washed more often because they might start looking dirty. But yes, I do wear them several nights in a row before I wash them. And I noticed when I was working out, I do half an hour or 20 to 30 minutes on an exercise bike. Then I take my trainers off and I do some weights and some Pilates and some stretching exercises. And I noticed when I was on my mat doing Pilates and stretching that there was like bits coming off, like fluff coming off, and every day when I got up from the floor there was like fluff on the floor where I was working out. They've been coming off these socks. So I probably wore these socks, I don't know, maybe 4 times, and then I washed them. And I don't know how easy it's going to be to see this. Oh yeah, you can see. Can you see there's quite a lot of fluff here? It's not like a huge amount, but considering the fact that I've only worn these a few times and washed them once, and I wash all my socks on 30-degree wool wash with I think it's a 400 spin, unless I make a mistake and put them on a 40-degree regular wash, which I did do the other day, but I haven't done that with these. So after I washed them the first time, I was like, I'm not sure if I'm happy about this. I have actually defluffed one pair now just before I started filming, so that's what they look like after a few wears and one wash. I've defluffed them. I have a video on 3 different kind of defluffers, depillers that I've tested out and which ones I like, and my favorite one, I used it just before I started filming this to remove some of the fluff, and I just very quickly went over it. And it is definitely looking better, although you can still see something that's there, but it's definitely looking better. So my first impression is that these do pill very, very quickly, and they get quite fluffy quite quickly, which I wasn't really expecting, because I find that most commercial sock yarns that are like a wool nylon polyamide blend don't tend to necessarily do that so quickly. A lot of hand-dyed sock yarns are merino or blue-faced Leicester. A lot of the commercial sock yarns just say wool, which means I don't think it's merino wool or blue-faced Leicester. It's probably just a blend of more hard-wearing wools. I think if it was merino wool, they would put that on the label. So this is just regular wool and polyamide, and I was a bit disappointed that it went so fluffy so quickly. I wasn't really expecting that. Like, there are some quite big bits coming off. Can you see that? I wasn't really expecting that, so that disappointed me, but it does come off when I go across it with my D pillar. So after this I gotta remember to do the other sock. The first one, as I was knitting it with it, hasn't really done that, and I haven't worn this sock yet, so this one still looks quite nice. So from that point of view, I think yes, they may still be hard-wearing socks. A lot of yarn will pill and go a bit fluffy, and that depends on the fibre. For example, cashmere tends to bloom a bit, so it goes a bit fluffy, but it's like an even kind of bloom across the fabric. Wool can also go a bit fluffy and bloom a bit after you knit it, and especially after washing, especially if it's a softer wool like merino. But I think it's unusual for this kind of sock yarn blend to do that, so I was a little bit disappointed with that. Another thing that will affect how quickly it pills or gets fluffy is the way it's spun. Now, I am not a yarn expert. Everything I've learned by yarn is from working as a knitwear designer for nearly 20 years now, I think. Yeah, coming up for 20 years. And also as a hand spinner. So I'm not a yarn professional in that I don't own a yarn company or spin yarn or anything like that. So I'm just coming, I probably have slightly more knowledge than I did before I started working as a knitwear designer, but I'm not an expert is what I'm trying to say. But my understanding is that the spin, how much twist is in the yarn, and the fibre combination will make a difference to how fluffy the yarn ends up and how much it pills. So pilling is not necessarily a sign of poor quality, especially if it's softer fibres like merino and cashmere. They are more likely to pill and get fluffy and bloom a bit because the fibres are softer. Fibres are a lot shorter. If you see unspun merino fibre and cashmere, especially cashmere fibre, is very, very short. The length of each individual fibre is short. Merino is shorter than some other not so soft wools. And the shorter the fibres, the easier they will work their way out of the stitches and out of the twists in the yarn and get fluffy. And also places where there's more abrasion, so I want to say, like where it rubs more. So if you knit a sweater, it's probably more likely to pill here where your arm's rubbing against your body and things like that. If you're carrying a bag, for example, it might pill more where your bag rests against your body, things like that, because of either body parts rubbing together or your knitted item rubbing on something else. It's more likely to pill and get a bit fluffy in those places. So that is just something to be aware of. The fact that I've already had to depill it after just a few wears and one wash. So I don't mind depilling my socks every so often. I will probably depill the second sock now and then probably leave them. I tend to leave my socks and depill them when they get really, really bad. When I get to a point where I'm thinking I'm going to have to put this in the bin because they just look so awful, that's when I tend to depill them. So it's not something I do very often. And because I just wear them at night, I'm not that bothered about it, to be quite honest. So I've just had a quick look on one website, and this particular website in the UK retails for £8.95. So I'm assuming most shops are selling it for about £8, £9, £10, which is quite cheap for sock yarn. I know it's probably more than you pay when you buy a pair of socks, but for buying sock yarn, that's relatively cheap, I think, certainly compared to hand-dyed yarn. So you do have to bear that in mind as well, that this is what I would consider a budget sock yarn. And you might be horrified that it should cost that much to knit a pair of socks, but I don't like to look at the cost of things in view of just the cost for the item. I also think about it in terms of the cost for the hobby and the hours of knitting that I get to enjoy. So did I enjoy knitting with this sock yarn? I didn't enjoy it as much as I do other sock yarns, and that's partly because it's not that soft, and I do really like soft yarns. I do always, my advice when it comes to choosing yarn is, regardless of what the pattern says, obviously you have to choose a yarn that's suitable for the pattern, but I also say try and knit with the yarn before you commit yourself, because especially if it's a big thing like a garment, because the yarn will be running through your hands the whole time and you will want to enjoy knitting with it, otherwise it becomes a bit of a slog. And I have had to knit with yarns I don't like because magazines have commissioned designs in yarns that I don't particularly like and wouldn't have chosen. So I have knitted with yarns where every single stitch has been a slog and I have not enjoyed it at all. And then I've been lucky enough to knit with other yarns that I love knitting with. Most designers take my advice and either choose the yarn I suggest or at least a similar yarn, so that's fine. So I must say I didn't love knitting with this yarn. This pair took me quite a long time. It was slowed down by the fact that it's a lace pattern, and although it's an easy lace pattern, it's still a lace pattern, so you have to concentrate a bit more. I tend to mainly knit socks when we're out and about, in the car, if you go to the cinema, things like that. So times when I don't really want to concentrate too much. And these, because they're lace, did take a bit more concentration. These other pair of socks were a lot quicker, but they still took me longer, and I still, as I was knitting them, wasn't really enjoying them as much as I normally do. Pulled off a bit more fluff. So overall, if I happen to be in a yarn shop and this is the only sock yarn they have and I need some sock yarn, yes, I will buy this sock yarn again, especially because there are a couple other colorways that I quite like. If they have a choice between this sock yarn and another sock yarn, I will probably choose the other sock yarn. So that is my view on the Rico design neon socks. Let me know if you have knitted with this yarn and what your thoughts are. And if you have any yarns that you'd like me to review, let me know in the comments. I will review yarns as I work with them and wear them and when I get time. So let me know if there's any yarns you'd like me to review. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.